I said yesterday at this very time, 24 hours ago, that if Daniel Jones is the Giants' pick at quarterback, it is a nightmare. And for me, it absolutely is a nightmare what happened last night. And guess what? I'm not the only one who thinks that, because we were at a Giants event. The majority of the people in the room felt the same way. There wasn't a collective boo. There was a collective groan. And it was as ugly as could be. And I got to tell you, it's not even about Daniel Jones and whether or not he's going to be a good quarterback in the league or a bust. I don't think he'll be a bust. I think he'll be excitingly average. This was just a remarkable reach with a dominant defensive player on the board and a big-time swing and a miss by a general manager. Just unreal to me.
I mean, you listen to that clip, it sounds like love at first sight to me. I mean, really? That's all it takes for evaluation, to see three drives, and that's, man, you're in love.
In the Senior Bowl.
In love. In the All-Star game. In love.
In essence,
Mobile,
the College
Alabama.
Pro Bowl now, because guys don't play, guys don't go all out anymore. It has nothing to do with what goes on in that game.
So what did you see last year? You saw no professional quarterbacks? Dwayne Haskins doesn't look like a professional quarterback? What does a professional quarterback look like in your opinion, Mr. Gettleman?
Well, it looks a lot like Eli Manning. You know, this is what they decided to do, is
who
get
still has a lot left, right? Because last week
Right.
he proved to Gettleman that, we thought that Eli had a lot left in the gas tank, and man, we're rewrite. Well, what the hell is everybody else looking at? I feel like I'm in the opposite world. Am I in the Matrix? Did I take the red pill? Cause am I not seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing?
What this is like is, and everyone has gone through this, where you have a friend who dated someone for a really long time, and then they break up, and then someone starts dating someone who looks exactly like that friend, except they're just a little bit different. But like, hey, he kind of walks and kind of talks like Eli Manning, so maybe he'll be as good as Eli Manning. But I personally don't think that Daniel Jones is going to be as good as Eli Manning. And you know, it's almost like two different general managers and two different organizations were making those picks last night. You had Daniel Jones at 6, who Dave Gettleman had said not a week ago, we don't put quarterbacks in special categories, and then doubled down last night by saying they had Daniel Jones and Josh Allen on the same horizontal. First of all, that's nuts. But secondly, if you don't have a special category for quarterbacks, that means you also put Daniel Jones ahead of a guy like Sam Darnold. You clearly do have a special category for quarterbacks. And so, you know, it's funny. I think that at this point, because I think all factions of Giants fans mostly were ticked off by this move. The E-Hive gets ticked off by this move because now you got someone who could be theoretically breathing down Eli's neck. Then you have the faction who Carlin wakes up and this is their personal nightmare. They also don't like the move. So you kind of disgruntled the entire fan base, or at least 90% of the fan base, and who knows what that's going to resonate like.
It is so much pressure put on this kid because now you picked him at 6, the expectations are through the roof. He not only has to be a good quarterback and be a continuation of Eli Manning, but he has to be able to do it by next year. Now, you can say whatever you want. You pick somebody 6. You don't – listen, Aaron Rodgers set for 3 years. Yeah, that model – but he got picked in the 20s, right? This kid got picked 6th overall. So that means you think that this guy can contribute next year, maybe at the end of this year. And if the Giants get off to a bad start, you're going to start hearing the boos, and you're going to start hearing the chance for the backup quarterback to come in and save the day.
I need a minute here. First of all, let's stop with the best player available. I never want to hear that phrase from Dave Gettleman again, because this was not the best player available.
No.
That's garbage.
No.
Number 2, how did the Giants win their 2 most recent Super Bowls?
Defensive ends.
Exactly. Pass rush. And getting home with 4. So it didn't matter how good your linebackers were. It didn't matter how good your corners and safeties were. As long as they were serviceable, you were in good shape because you could drop 7 every single time. We used to question Ernie Accorsi about when he overdrafted at the position. We used to question Jerry Reese when he overdrafted at that position, and we were always wrong because you can never, they talk about not being able to have too many good players and too many good quarterbacks. You can. You cannot have too many good defensive ends. You know who could not believe that he was getting an opportunity to get a special player last night? Tom freaking Coughlin.
Who already has 2 bookend defensive ends.
Tom Coughlin last night said, in most of our scenarios, there is no, Josh Allen was not anywhere near us. Even joked that Allen had told him, well, you're probably going to have to trade up to get me. And he thought he was right. He is, and Tom called him a superior football player, too good to pass up. And here's what's even more insulting about it. You know what Tom just did? They've got Yannick Ngakoue. They've got Calais Campbell. Tom Coughlin just followed your freaking plan from winning the Super Bowls of getting yet another pass rusher. And then there's the quarterback, which, Maggie, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, by taking Daniel Jones here with the 6th overall pick, you are saying that he is better than Sam Darnold, that he is better than last year's quarterback, Josh Allen, that he is better than Josh Rosen. You're saying, and I don't care how good Saquon is, you're saying this guy is better because the quarterback is the most important position on the field. So how do we evaluate quarterbacks now if we're the Giants, by the way? I've heard a lot about this. So Daniel Jones has been through so much adversity and had nobody around him at Duke. You know who that sounds like? Eli Manning. Eli Manning had an unbelievable season because, well, listen, he didn't have anybody around him last year. So is that how we evaluate quarterbacks, by what you don't have to work with?
When you know, man.
Well,
when you saw your wife, you knew first sight.
I understand.
It took 3 drives, and he was like, you know what, I love him.
Well,
he falls hard. He falls quick.
Bart, you know this. I mean, the Senior Bowl? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? I mean, I talked to people just to double check this morning. Tell me about the process of the Senior Bowl. I've never been there. I've never been to the Senior Bowl.
I've been there the last 3 years.
Okay.
3 years.
What are the most important days, Bart? Monday through Thursday, right?
Yeah, it's the practice days, the 101s and all that stuff.
And everybody leaves Thursday.
Yeah.
And Dave says, I want to stick around and see this guy play in the atmosphere.
It's special rules in those games, too. It's certain blitzes and things you can't do.
Right. So the atmosphere is 8,000 in Mobile.
Yes.
You know, instead of 100,000 in Columbus. And it's not even about Haskins. It's about this guy and every evaluation saying, yeah, he's a nice player. Every evaluation saying, there's not a big flaw, but there's nothing special. I listen, I know you got to believe in your quarterback, and I know you got to get after him, but the fact that you actually got suckered into believing that somebody else was coming to take him before then, and you have to get your guy at 6 if you're going to get him. Well, last week you told us you're not reaching for a quarterback, and you're going to be in quarterback hell. Well, the flames are all around us, my friend. We are burning in hell right now. I can't get over it.
You know, I think there's another part of that too, Carl, and everything you say, well taken. I think there's a part of this where, okay, even if you don't want to hear anything out of Gettleman anymore, like, because obviously the words aren't matching what the actions are. Just look at the actions. Look at the actions since he took over and ask yourself, do I understand where this franchise is going? Like, really, he comes in and you talk about, getting Barkley over one of the quarterbacks. Listen, we're going to talk about this until the cows come home. You talk about trading JPP, you trade Snacks, you trade Eli Apple, you trade Odell Beckham Jr.
Olivia Vernon.
You let Landon Collins walk, thank you. You sign replacements that either aren't as good but are maybe just as expensive. Seems like a little bit odd. Now you pick 3 players in the first round, but one of them you say last night, it's like, well, I'll go by his words on this one, that it could be the Green Bay model. So now you have a quarterback that might not start for 3 years. Ever since the rookie wage school,
I think the Green Bay model had Brett Favre, if I'm not mistaken, and then Aaron Rodgers.
But ever since the rookie wage scale came into play, now you're on the clock when you draft a quarterback. So he might just be saying that tongue-in-cheek because he tries to be funny.
Or he wants to make Eli happy.
And
well, making Eli happy is a whole other part of this.
That's a major priority,
It's a major priority.
Who was advising Daniel Jones?
Well, you know who.
Oh, okay. That's
Peyton.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so he's
yet another Manning.
So he's a.
I thought you were talking about Cutcliffe.
No.
because
Peyton
oh,
was
of course,
advising.
no. Peyton was he's definitely advising Daniel Jones, and then also about
Is Cooper
Cutcliffe.
his agent? I mean,
This
come
is-
on.
this is- Carl and I were talking about this last night a little bit, and we're like, I kind of forgot that the quarterbacks who are the best in the country usually come from the state of Texas. Or lately do. I forgot they're all running to Duke to get coached by David Cutcliffe. Listen, I'm not going to take away from a coach who had 2 pupils who went on to be superstars. But that doesn't mean that Daniel Jones is just going to follow suit. Heath Schuler was also one of his guys. I mean, unless he's going to become a U.S. representative of Congress, I don't know if you want him following in those footsteps.
If you're going to take the bows on the Mannings, take the hit on Heath Schuler.
Well, I mean, you just have to look at the full thing. Now, here's the bottom line, though, and I think that there are a lot of Giants fans today, or I'm sorry, there are some Giants fans today who are waking up and saying, we do have a quarterback, so there's a plan now. We did get 2 very good, what we think is going to be very good defensive players who will help immediately. So, hey, what's the big deal? What's the problem? And while I see that point of view, I just would caution that just because the plan might be there with taking a quarterback high, just because you have a plan doesn't mean that it's not going to get flushed down the toilet. But that is the risk you take, right? I think there are Giants fans, I'm looking at 2 of them right now, Morash and McMonigal, who are just happy that this quarterback conversation appears to be coming to an end and that you have a guy who's going to come after Eli Manning.
Well, I think
Hello, grammar.
I think the conversation is just starting.
I do too. I think that, honest to God, and I know that this probably would have happened before, but I do think there was a glint in Eli Manning's eye when he saw Ben Roethlisberger sign that 2-year extension for $60 million and thinks to himself, who the hell's he? Look at me. I won just as many Super Bowls. I'm Eli Manning. I'm just as good. I think people who don't see that Eli Manning looks around the league and says Tom Brady's playing until 40, Drew Brees 45, Drew Brees is going to play till 45. Why can't I play till 45?
Everybody's still in his class. He don't want to be
course.
the first one to ball out.
Well, I think he thinks that he's right there. He's won 2 more Super Bowls than Phillip Rivers. So I think that while people, believe this could be the end, I don't know if this is the end. Sorry.
All I can think of is this. You're going to have Sam Darnold across town. You're going to have Dwayne Haskins in D.C. And 10 years from now, you may look back and say, things were not going well. That's where they really went in the tank. And Jones, I don't even expect him to be a complete bust. I just think he's going to be average.
Yep.
And for me, it's not even about Haskins so much as it's about an unbelievably elite, talented defensive player that was right there at a position of need for you, that when you talk about trying to win now and trying to rebuild at the same time, fits both of those descriptions, and you let him go. And then you take somebody else later at 17 in Lawrence, and I'm not knocking it. He's good against the run. But if you're going to tell me about how he affects the interior, the pass rushers on the outside by pushing up the middle, well, who would have benefited from that? Are you telling me that the 2 Clemson defensive linemen that went in front of him and had all that production because of Lawrence? Is that what we're saying? There's a lot of
They're trying to replace
talking
snacks.
out of both sides of your mouth here.
Well, you've gone this
And
far.
I'm not saying he's a bad player. And listen, I hope the corner's great. I hope I'm wrong on all of this. I don't think Jones is going to be a bust, but man, I don't think the Giants.
I wonder what this
I
means
think this
for
is a
Janoris.
nightmare.
I wonder what this, because they've been talking about culture. I wonder what this means for Janoris Jenkins. Because now they took a corner with the 3rd compensatory pick last year. He's going to be coming back from injury. Now they went out and got what people believe is the highest rated corner. Are they trying to dump some salary potentially with him? Is that something that we should start paying attention to?
Well, I think Jenkins was always on a shaky ground. Anyone who was chosen by Jerry Reese is on shaky ground because of that culture narrative and because of that refrain, that constant refrain. And the thing is about all these moves that have been made, since Gettleman took over. And then to sit there and say, well, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's like, well, you have started construction on the Colosseum. It's got to be finished at some point, don't you think? It shouldn't take 100 years.
One last one, Dave. Just honestly, take a class in how to deal with people. Because that press conference last night, you could not sound like a more condescending individual than you did. And you really did last night, especially at the end. And knowing Kim, she doesn't care. But you call Kim darling at the end of the press conference? I mean, God, shut up. You don't have to go out there and pull these, see how football works is. Because that's exactly what it sounded like. 117.
He's trying to be folksy.
Yeah, there's no folksy about it.
He thinks he's in a Norman Rockwell painting, but no one else sees him that way.
117. Your calls are next. 877-337-6666.
The Giants helpline. Call in. Don't jump off that cliff.
Also, we eventually have to hear from the people who loved last night.
Yeah.
But we're also sitting in the studio.
Yeah, we'll get to them.
Hey, talk about walking contradictions.
Why ruin the dumpster fire? Keep it burning.
Talking about contradictions. Whew.